Good morning. Welcome to another Theory Thursday. Today we're looking at a fascination of mine is the usefulness and the utility of the 6/9 chord, right? Today we're looking at how do you use them? What are they? First of all, how do you use them? And why are they so useful on guitar? So that's what we're looking at today. I have my black Timex Weekender on, black band, white bass. I got my black tie on, ready to go. As always, if you've been enjoying these, please like and subscribe to the channel if you want to stay in the loop. I'm going to keep making them. I love making these videos, and we'll just keep rolling. So, yeah, without further ado, let's go talk about 6/9 chords. Hello, welcome back to the whiteboard. Today we are looking at the usefulness of 6/9 chords. What are they? How do you use them? They're really helpful on guitar. So let's talk about them. First of all, what is it? Let's use our example key, C. Now, when you see this in a piece of music, it's going to look like this. 6/9, or sometimes it'll be 6/9 just stacked on top of each other. Okay, one of those two is how it's going to show up. Now, what does it mean? Everything that we've learned up till now is if it's C and a number, everything before it is assumed. So if it's a C9, you're thinking, okay, this is a dominant chord. C, E, G, B flat, 9 is the D, and if it's below 7, like C6, it's your regular triad, C, E, G, and then an A tacked onto it, okay? This is a special chord, because when you see this, C6/9, you take your regular triad, and you add a 6, and you add a 9. There's no 7 involved, whether it's major or dominant. There's no 7 involved, okay? So, C, E, G, that's a regular C triad. We're going to add the 6, we're going to add the 9. C, E, G, A, D. So we have 1, 3, 5, 6, 9. Okay? Now this is a chord, not just C, but any 6/9 chord. This is a chord that you can substitute out if you're looking at a major 7. Basically any tonic or subtonic, like the 1 or the 4 chord, any one of those, you can sub this for. Okay? You can put this in place of any tonic or subtonic. Because it's a consonant sounding, right? The only, there's no dominant, there's no tritone, there's no crunch to the chord, okay? So that you can really sub it out. It's a real beautiful chord, and I'll play all this at the end of the video, okay? So you'll be able to see it and hear it on the guitar at the end, okay? So how would you play something like this? Well, like we talk about on guitar, with only so many only so many fingers and strings, we have to, leave some notes by the wayside when we're picking what to play here. So the easiest and most straightforward way to do this is like this. It's going to be second finger here. Okay. Your first finger is going to bar these two, and your ring finger is going to be right here. So what do we have here? We're not going to play the outside E strings. We have a C. This is the 3rd fret, A string. Okay. We have an E. We have an A. We have a D. So what does that come out to? Root, 3rd, 6, 9. We took out the 5th. Okay? Now the cool thing about this shape is. So this is with the bass note on the A string, right? You're playing a C. Check this out. So that's how you play a C, 6, 9. What if I was to tell you you could move your second finger down a string, everything stays the same except for the bass note, right? You move it down, all of a sudden you're playing a G. Okay, now what is this? It's actually a G, 6, 9, right? It's still a 6, 9 chord. So look at this. You got your root. So don't look at this. We're thinking a G now. G, B, D, 6, and 9. Okay? You have your root. You have your 6. You have your 9. And you have your 5th. So in this rearrangement of the notes, now we've taken out the 3rd. Okay? So that's just one thing I really love about this shape is you're just a 5th away from 2 6, 9 chords. All right? So play it here, and you got your C, 6, 9. Play your bass note here, and you got a G, 6, 9. Okay? So, and that works everywhere because it's a closed chord. There are no open strings here. Okay? So I think that's really cool because you can move it anywhere. So, for example, you could play C, 6, 9 on this string on the 3rd fret, or you could bring this whole thing up to the 8th fret and play it like that. And all of a sudden, that's a C, 6, 9. Right? And then you're only a string away from playing an F, 6, 9. Okay? So it's movable, highly movable. Okay? Now that's just one shape with your root note in the bass, no matter how you play it. Okay? Let's look at one other one. First of all, this is really helpful, especially when you're playing tunes and the 5th is in the melody at the top, or if the 9 is in the melody at the top. Because if you're playing a C right here, root, 3rd, 6, 9. So, and you'll see plenty of those if you're playing jazz, where it'll say play a C chord, C major 7 or C 6 9, and in the melody it's going to be a D. All right, this is the shape you want to go for. Okay, let's look at another. Now this is how I play it. Okay, you're going to take your first finger, you're going to bar the top 4 strings, and you're going to take your second finger and you're going to bar the top 2 strings. Okay? So, what do we get here? And we're not going to play these two. We have an E, we have an A, we have a D, and we have a G. Okay. So, let's look at our chords here. You could call this a C, 6, 9. Why? Because look at the notes in here. We have an E, we have an A, we have a D, and we have a G. We're just missing the root, which, as we've learned, isn't entirely necessary, right? Usually the first note to go is the 5th. However, the root is close behind. You'd be surprised how often you don't need it. Now, let's look at these in terms of G. E, have it here. A, have it here. D, have it here. And G, we have a root. In this little combination, we're taking out the 3rd. So you could call this C6-9 or G6-9. It works for both. Similar to this, where you have to move your finger, this just works for both. Okay, now let's move this whole thing up to the 8th fret. And it's going to be the same exact thing. Okay, what do we have here? C on the top. G is next. Next we have a D, and then an A, and we're not playing these. Okay, so 3rd fret, 8th fret. Now, when we were down on the 3rd fret, see the top note here, G. That could be considered a root note, or it could be considered a 5th of whatever we want to play, 6, 9, or C or G. Okay, so let's move the whole thing up to the 8th fret. Okay, we have a root note, C. So just to prove it, C, we have a G, we have a D, and we have an A. Okay. The other way to look at this, just like we did down here, is what if C was the 5th, right? What do we get? C, 6, 9. An F, 6, 9 chord, because C is the 5th of F. And just to prove it, we have our C, we have our G, we have a D, we have an A, and we're just missing the root. Okay, so I think this is fascinating, and I use it all the time, especially if you're playing trio, quartet, quintet, anything where it's more than you and maybe more than a duo. You can take these chords, and anytime you see a chord and you don't want to move too much, find the 5th of it, and you can build it on that. Or if you're close enough, it could be the root, right? So if I see an F major 7 or an F6, 9, I'm playing this if I'm up there on the neck, right? So just to be clear, this could be called C6, 9 or F6, 9. Okay. Now, if we wanted to play F6, 9 with F on top, bring it all the way down to the 1st fret. Yeah? And then what would we have? We'd have an F, we'd have a C, we'd have a G, and we'd have a D. So that's the power of the 6-9 chord. It's so useful. It's the utility of it is just fascinating on guitar, especially because you can sub it out. Sub this in for major 7 chords, for regular triads, right? If you know what context those chords are in, right? If they're just consonant and they're not leading, and they're not dominant chords, put these guys in there. I mean, they're so easy, right? And I said this is how I play it. You could just as easily do this. You could bar these 2 strings, and then you could do 2, 3 here. So you're only barring 2 strings instead of 4, right? That's just another way to play it. Easier on your fingers. So anyway, that's my fascination with the 6-9 chord. Highly useful and highly utilized by me, especially in solo guitar. Hello, welcome away from the whiteboard and into the guitar zone. Okay, 6-9 chords. First, let's demonstrate how you can sub them in for major 7 chords or just regular triads. So let's say we're playing the key of C. I'm just going to do a regular jazz progression. I'll do 1, dominant 6, minor 2, dominant 5, and then we're going to go back to 1. My strap just broke. But that is a regular major 7 chord. C major 7 is what I played there. Let's see what it sounds like with a 6-9 at the end. So it's still pretty consonant, right? Some argue even more consonant than the major 7 because there's not that half step, right, B to C, that could cause some tension. So very consonant. So there's your listening proof that you can swap it out, right? The 6-9 chord is really consonant, and you can swap it out for the tonic, which is the 1 chord, or the subtonic 4 chord, and depending if there's any key changes within whatever song you're playing. You can swap it out. Anything that's like a major 7 chord. We're trying. Okay, so let's look at these shapes. So we were looking at C6-9 here. So what I have here is my second finger on the A string, 3rd fret, right? That's your root note, your C. My first finger is barring these 2, D string and the G string. So that's your E and your A. And then my ring finger is playing B string, 3rd fret, D. All together, middle 4 strings. And you're not touching the outer bass and top string, the E's. So like I said, it's the root note, the 6, what did I do? No, the root note, the 3rd, the 6, the 9. And what happens is when we just move our second finger down a string, and this time we're skipping the A string and the E string, everything else stays the same. Okay? All of a sudden we're playing a G6-9, right? You don't have to change anything else, just the root note. And it changes things. Instead of root 3rd 6-9, now we're playing root 6 9 5th. Okay, and just to prove it, here's a little progression. Right? There's the G6-9. Okay, so that's the E's. You're just a bass note shift away from playing a chord that's a whole 5th away from what you were playing, right? C to G, F to C, right? G to D. And you can move this anywhere because there's no open strings, right? So let's talk about the top 4 strings, that version of the 6-9. Right, this is how I play it. Right, my first finger is barring the top 4, and my second finger is just barring the top 2, a fret away. Right, so you have. Now some people play it with their top 3, where first finger bars, and then your second and third finger hit the top 2 strings. Right, and then you have your pinky to do whatever. I tend to just bar because we're not too far away from a dominant 9 chord. It's also a great shape. We can talk about that another day. But similar to this, where you're just a bass note away from switching the chord entirely, this can be used in either situation. So like we talked about on the whiteboard, this chord here has all the notes you need to play a C6-9 or a G6-9. Okay? So, if let's say we're playing a C6-9, and I'll do a little progression. Right? You could end the song there. We're playing in the key of C, where G is the dominant. That sounds pretty good. There's not even a C in the chord. You have an E, you have an A, you have a D, and you have a G. So if we're playing this in the context of C6-9, we got a 3rd, a 6, a 9, and a 5th. Okay? Now you can also play it as a G6-9 because you have a 6, 9, 5th root. Right? So let's hear it like that. Right? You can end it like that. So there are just 2 ways where you heard it as a C6-9, and the second way I played it, you heard it as a G6-9. Okay? So, whatever this top note is, right, in this shape, you can play as this as the root, or you can play it as this as the 5th. So on the whiteboard, I move this up to the 8th fret. Right? And this top note is a C. So you can play this as a C6-9, or you can play it as a 5th. So what's C? What is the 5th? What, if you're looking at C, what is that the 5th of? F. Right? That's an F6-9. Which, if you look, is the same as this. F6-9, C6-9. So you can do that anywhere you're playing. So for example, that could be an A6-9. It could also be a D6-9, right? Because A is on the top, root or fifth. So that's my fascination with the 6-9 chords. That's all I got for you here. Yeah, there's not much else I have to say about it. Just it's kind of like diminished chords. Like, just the moving one finger is a completely new chord using the same notes, just rearranging the order of them gives you a completely different chord. Or like the case in the top 4 strings, or this was true, yeah, these two, not those two. Like the case in the top 4 strings, having one chord that could be considered both, right? If someone said play a G6-9, you're playing this. And then if someone said play C6-9, you don't move at all, right? That's the cool part about it. So anyway, I think that's enough for today. And hopefully you learned something. If you have any questions, as always, put them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. So hopefully you learned something, had a good time, and we'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.